This handout is for section 2.6, ratios and proportions. You're going to have it this way, and we're going to fold it towards those dotted lines. And so we're looking at ratios first. Ratios can be written in 3 different ways. This says A, this is how we read it, A to B. Where that colon is just read as 2. But an example would be 3 to 4. And that would mean the exact same thing as a fraction, 3 divided by 4. When you're comparing 2 different things. So let me give you an example. Boys to girls. Red chocolates to brown chocolates, whatever ratio, whatever comparison that you're thinking of. And then this application right here is the words for it, 3 to 4. Most of the time in algebra, we see them this way. And in geometry, we see it this way because we're talking about a scale. There are 4 ways to determine whether 2 ratios form a proportion. So we'll take a look at that first. So if you'll open this up. And this is the top portion. So how do you know that ratios form a proportion? What a proportion means is that 2 ratios that are equal. How do you know that the 2 ratios are equal is practically the question, but we say are proportional. Okay, the first strategy is to find a common multiplier. Common multiplier. What does that mean? 3 times something, does it give me 21? 3 times 7 gives me 21. 5 times 7. Does that give me 35? It does. So that's how we can say that they're common factors, because they have a common multiplier. They have a number that they're multiplying in common. Strategy 2. Strategy 2, we have cross multiply. And what we're doing is multiplying 5 times 21. And I'm going to write it out, 5 times 21. And is that equal to 3 times 35. So on this one, we want to know, is it equal to 3 times 35? 5 times 21 is 105. 3 times 35 is 105. So since they are equal, then it is proportional. On this one, we're looking kind of the same thing as a common multiplier, but here we're looking at simplifying the ratio. So our focus is on this time. Do they have a common factor to simplify by? Well, let's divide by 7 and divide by 7. Once we simplify that, 21 divided by 7 is 3. And 35 divided by 7 is 5. We know that the 2 proportions are equal to each other because they give the same result. So it's sort of like this one. So what you're doing here is taking the small one and multiplying by something to give you the other ratio. And here we're working in reverse. We're getting the big one and dividing by something to get the smaller ratio. The next one, to check if the 2 ratios are equal or proportional, is that we do 3 divided by 5, which is 0.6, and 21 divided by 35, which also gives you 0.6. So I'm going to write it off to the side, so just when you see it later, it makes sense to you. You did 3 divided by 5 to get the 0.6. And 21 divided by 35 to get the 0.6, making them equal. The other part of this handout is to solve To solve a proportion, use the strategy of cross multiplying. And the reason that you want to do that is because on this ones they have variables. We're looking at variables. We're going to cross multiply 6 and x. Let me draw the line. And 6 times x is equal to 5 times 9.6. 5 times 9.6. Remember, we don't need the parentheses anymore to indicate multiplication. That's 6x is equal to, and then 5 times 9.6 is 48. And then divide by 6 to both sides. X is equal to 8. So let's get more practice. I'm going to cross multiply this way first, and I'll draw the line. That's 4 times 49, and that's equal to 28 times W. 49 times 4 is 196, 28W. So now we're going to divide by 28 to both sides. 7 is equal to W. The next one, we have 3 times N. So we do 3 times N. And then on the other side, we have 6 times 0.51. 3N is just 3N. We don't need parentheses anymore. 0.15 times 6 gives me 30.06. Divide by 3. N is equal to 1.02. Okay, so for this one right here, we'd have to multiply these two together. And I'm going to write it as 12, open parentheses, x plus 1, because it has to be multiplied by that whole denominator, x plus 1. On the other side, we have 5 times 4. I'm going to go ahead and draw the box for our distributive property. We have 12, x and a positive 1. 12 times x is 12x. 12 times 1 is 12. That means that on this side we have 12x plus 12. Don't forget, we're multiplying these numbers in. 12 times 1 is 12. We're not adding them, which would give you 13. 5 times 4 is 20. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides. I have 12x is equal to 8. Then we're going to divide by 12 to both sides. X can simplify to 2/3. Well, how did I get that answer? On your calculator, you can write 8 divided by 12, and it gives you a decimal approximation. And then we hit math, hit enter, enter, and that gives you the 2/3. All right, and for the last one, we draw the line. We're going to multiply these two. That would be 7, open parentheses, a plus 2. And for this side, we would have to have 14, open parentheses, a minus 4. We're going to do the box on both sides. That's 7a plus 2. 7 times a is 7a. 7 times 2 is 14. Remember, we're multiplying 14, and then we draw the box. A and then minus 4. 14 times a is 14a. 14 times negative 4 is a negative 56. So what we got inside of the box is 7a plus 14 is equal to 14a minus 56. I'm going to subtract 14a from both sides. Remember, you want the a's to line up. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract 14 to both sides. I have negative 7a is equal to negative 7d. And then we divide by negative 7 to both sides. A is equal to 10. And that is solving proportions and simplifying ratios.